The FAS Digi PRO is the newest development of Nippon Genetics Europe. It is a gel documentation system using our blue-green LED technology, and this video is to show you how to demonstrate the FAS Digi PRO in front of a customer. So this video is to show you how to demonstrate a FAS Digi PRO. And when I do the demonstration of the FAS Digi PRO, I tend to start from the top part of the FAS Digi PRO and I go to the bottom part. So this means that when I talk with a customer, I will first introduce the camera. The camera, the major feature of the camera is its sensitivity, the resolution, and that it has a zoom integrated. Okay? So the resolution of 24 megapixels enables the cropping of the images. This means that the customer can crop only to the region of interest, leaving all the stuff that they don't need out of the image. The sensitivity, the major benefit for the customer is that they can take images and detect bands that they cannot detect with other systems. And last but not least, the zoom is, of course, you can use here the front ring, the metal ring here on the top part to zoom in and out. And the zoom is just to give you an optical distance to reduce or increase the optical distance of the focal point, sorry, not of the focal point, of the zoom of the camera to the gel. The next part then is the metal hood. The metal hood is made out of aluminum. Advantage here clearly being the weight. You can easily lift it and position it back on the transilluminator. It has a perfect fit with the transilluminator and it supplies the power to the camera, but also the power to the transilluminator. So we switch on and now we can open the front part of the hood and turn on the transilluminator. With the transilluminator, you can then start talking about the blue-green technology, the advantages of using a visible light so you do not destroy the DNA and the RNA while detecting it. Still, you have a very strong signal because the blue-green LEDs excite the DNA dyes much more than the regular blue LEDs. In comparison to UV light, always highlight UV light is destroying your DNA. The blue-green LED light is not destroying your DNA. Benefit for the customer, they have a safe light source so that the user itself is not in danger, as well as increasing the downstream applications, because destroyed DNA will then lead to failed experiments further down the line, for example when you use it for cloning or if you use it for sequencing. Position the gel in the central area and zoom in the region of interest. The next part of the demonstration is going to be about the software. The FAS Digi PRO comes with an intuitive software, and the software is free of additional charges, so when the customer buys the FAS Digi PRO, the software is already included. The software works with any Windows 10 and with some limitations with Windows 7. The software is also used to control the camera. So when you demonstrate the camera, the FAS Digi PRO, demonstrate it with the software. Feel yourself comfortable with the software. You only have 3 different settings that you can adjust with the FAS Digi PRO. The first setting that you adjust is the aperture. This means the opening or closing of the iris. The second one is then the exposure time. The exposure time gives you the amount of time that the sensor is exposed to the light. The smaller the number, so 1 divided by 200, is much smaller than 1 second. This means 1 second will give you a brighter picture, of course, than the 1 divided by 200. The third setting that you can adjust then is the ISO. And the ISO stands for the sensitivity of the sensor. So if you increase the ISO, you will increase the sensitivity, but you will also create this possibility of noise. So be very careful when you adjust the ISO. Okay? When you present the software, start from the top left part and go down to the bottom right part. This will give you again an orientation on how to explain the software. We start on the top left part with the aperture, I just mentioned, opening and closing of the iris. Then going to the exposure time. Afterwards you are at the ISO settings, and then you have the exposure range. The exposure range is the possibility that the FAS Digi PRO has of taking 3 images rather than just 1. You will have the 3 images, and you can choose one of the 3 images and select this one to be saved. The difference between the images is just the exposure time. So exposure time of the first picture is going to be lower than of the second picture, and that is going to be lower than of the third picture, right? So you select the perfect picture, you save it as you want to save, and then you can go further on, which is to adjust the live view. The live view adjustments are transforming the colored image into black and white, monochrome, or you select the invert function. This is important if you have, for example, black and white activated. You can activate the invert function to create a white background with black lines rather than black background with white lines. And third but not least, you can also mirror the image vertically, so that if you put the gel on the wrong orientation, you just press that button and the customer will then see the gel in the right orientation. On the top part of the software, we have the focusing systems with 1, 2 or 3. These are the sensitivity steps between the focusing. So focusing with 1 is very sensitive, while focusing with 3 is with very large steps. I would suggest when you do the demo, start with 2 and then do the fine-tuning with 1.
To focus in a Windows 10 system, just point the mouse pointer onto the image and rotate the mouse wheel.
So then on the right-hand side you have the print out button. So if you have a printer connected to the computer, you press that button and the computer will open the Windows print window. So then you can select the printer you want and print the live view of that printer. Next to the printing button, we have the grid button that will enable you to show some grid structure so that you can align the gel perfectly to that grid. And then you have the labeling part, as well as the settings where you can adjust the font size and you can adjust the font itself, right? Additionally, in the settings, you have the helping function. If you activate that, it will help you by showing a window that will be displayed as soon as you hover with the mouse on top of the function. So if you activate that and you go over the exposure time, it will show a window saying exposure time is the time that the sensor is exposed to the image, to the light. And that's it. That's the software.